Warm greetings from the Heights End. It is Everyday Shenanigans, and thanks for joining me. I will be bringing you some information pertaining to the trial of Derek Chauvin in the murder of George Floyd, and it will probably be a bit lengthy, so please bear with me. The Minnesota Reformer is the first source of information. George Floyd's girlfriend takes the stand. Chauvin's supervisor says restraint should have stopped sooner. The fourth day of testimony in Derek Chauvin's trial revolved around George Floyd's drug use and two paramedics' conclusion that Floyd was dead by the time their ambulance arrived on the scene at Cup Foods. These are the takeaways from the trial. Thursday. Floyd's girlfriend acknowledges their opiate addiction. George Floyd's girlfriend, Courtney Ross, 45, gave jurors a glimpse into the life of the man she called Floyd beyond the video the world has seen of his head being pressed into the pavement. Ross, who lives in northeast Minneapolis, told jurors that she met Floyd in 2017 at the Salvation Army Harbor Light Center, a shelter for people experiencing homelessness. She was distraught over family issues. Floyd, who worked as a security guard at the shelter, asked in his great, deep southern voice, "Sis, you okay, sis?" And I wasn't okay, Ross said. He asked if he could pray with her. "I was tired and we've been through so much. My sons and I," Ross testified. "He was so nice to just say, 'Can I pray with you?' It was so sweet," she said. "I had a lot of faith in God." They later had their first kiss in the lobby of the shelter and continued dating, off and on, until Floyd's death in the hands of Minneapolis police last Memorial Day. He was new to the city and they went to the lakes, the sculpture garden, and lots of restaurants. "It just seemed like I was new to my own city," she said. "It was an adventure always with him." She said he worked out every day and loved all kinds of sports. Floyd also was head of security for the Conga Latin Bistro and nightclub until it shut down due to the coronavirus pandemic. Floyd was diagnosed with the virus in March, she said. When the prosecutor displayed the now ubiquitous selfie of Floyd that has traveled the world, she broke down crying. She called it a dad selfie because the father of two daughters didn't know how to take a good selfie. Ross described Floyd as a mama's boy who was crushed when his mama died in May 2018. "He was broken," she said. "He seemed so sad. He didn't have the same kind of bounce that he had." She also acknowledged the dark side of the relationship, opiate addiction. They both got addicted after being prescribed medication for chronic pain. They typically took Oxycontin or oxycodone pills, she said. "We got addicted and tried really hard to break the addiction many times," Ross said. She testified that on March 6, 2020, she picked up Floyd from his duplex in St. Louis Park to take him to work, but he was doubled over in pain, so she took him to the emergency room, where he later overdosed and remained hospitalized for 5 days. Chauvin's attorney, Eric Nelson, said he overdosed on heroin. After that, Floyd stayed clean until about 2 weeks before his death, when Ross said he began taking stimulants that would make him bounce around and become unintelligible. She tried them too, and they made her jittery and unable to sleep. Nelson pressed Ross as to whether she knew Floyd bought the stimulants from dealer Maurice Hall, who was with Floyd the day he went to Cup Foods. Nelson said she also speculated to investigators that he may have gotten drugs from Shawanda Hill, the backseat passenger in the SUV Floyd was driving that day. Hennepin County paramedic Seth Bravender told jurors that when he and his partner pulled up to Cup Foods, Floyd didn't appear to be breathing or moving, with 3 police officers still on top of him. His partner, Derek Smith, checked Floyd's neck for a pulse and couldn't find one. "In lay terms, I thought he was dead," Smith testified. Smith said Floyd's pupils were dilated when he first checked him at the scene. Pupils are normally small in overdoses, he said. They decided to load Floyd into the ambulance and take him to a few blocks away to try to resuscitate him because their equipment was inside the ambulance. Firefighter paramedics hadn't yet arrived to help, and the crowd was restive. Officer Thomas Lane went with them in the ambulance. Bravender is the person who finally got Chauvin to remove his knee from Floyd's neck, nudging him to move it so they could put Floyd on a stretcher. While en route to 36th Street and Park Avenue, Smith said he had Officer Lane begin chest compressions as he prepared to try to resuscitate Floyd. But when they stopped the ambulance, Smith said Floyd had acetol or flatline, the most serious form of cardiac arrest and usually irreversible. Nelson suggested they stop the ambulance there so Bravender could take over for Lane, but Smith said not to take over. We needed everybody we could at that time. Why didn't you just have the officer help you continue so you could go straight to the hospital? Nelson said. That's not what we do, Smith said. Is it because he's not an EMT? Nelson said. Any layperson can do chest compressions, Smith said. There's no reason Minneapolis police couldn't have started chest compressions. Amen. Minneapolis Fire Department Captain Jeremy Norton was on the fire truck dispatched to Cup Foods, but by the time they arrived, Floyd had already been taken away. But Norton didn't know that and testified Thursday that he walked into Cup Foods looking for a patient. In the store, he spoke with off-duty firefighter Genevieve Hansen, who had witnessed much of the incident and was agitated to distraught, she testified Wednesday. Once Norton met up with the ambulance at 36th and Park and saw Floyd's condition, he understood why Hansen was so upset, he testified. He took over for Officer Lane in the ambulance. After leaving the hospital where Floyd was pronounced dead, he reported to fire officials that a man had been killed and an off-duty firefighter was a witness, he testified. Minneapolis Sergeant David Ployer was the 3rd precinct supervisor that night and first heard something was amiss with a dispatcher who saw the scene on a street camera. Ployer called Chauvin on his cell phone. Chauvin was in his squad car and said a man had become combative as officers were putting him in a squad car and injured his nose or mouth and suffered a medical emergency that required an ambulance. Chauvin told him something about holding somebody down. Ployer testified, but nothing about a knee on a neck. Under questioning by the prosecutor, Ployer said once someone is handcuffed and no longer resisting, such restraint should stop. Once Ployer arrived on the scene, officers Lane and J. Alexander Queen told him Floyd was handcuffed and an ambulance had taken Floyd to the Hennepin County Medical Center. Ployer told Lane and Queen to gather witnesses and told Chauvin and Officer Tuttle to go to HCMC. Once at the hospital, Ployer saw hospital staff working on Floyd. Chauvin and Teo arrived, and Ployer asked Chauvin if they used any other force. That's when he first learned Chauvin had knelt on Floyd's neck. Once they learned Floyd had died, it became a critical incident in which the scene is secured and officers are separated and questioned at City Hall. This information is by the Minnesota Reformer. And I will bring you more information pertaining to this testimony that took place yesterday. So you hear that his girlfriend testified to their meeting, how they met. The other 2 ambulance staff who assisted with Mr. George Floyd after being knelt on by the knee of Chauvin and appeared to be not moving and deceased. Fox News is the next source. Derek Chauvin trial, key witness to invoke the 5th Amendment, refuses to testify. A key witness who was with George Floyd on the day he died has informed the court that he will invoke the 5th Amendment if asked to testify in Derek Chauvin's murder trial. The Hennepin County Public Defender's Office filed a notice Wednesday on behalf of Maurice Lester Hall, 42, who was in the car with Floyd when police approached him for allegedly using a fake $20 bill at Cup Foods in Minneapolis. Mr. Maurice Lester Hall, through undersigned counsel, hereby provides notice to all parties in this matter that if called to testify, he will invoke his 5th Amendment privilege against self-incrimination, said a notice filed by Assistant Public Defender Adrian Cousins. Therefore, counsel for Mr. Hall respectfully moves this court to squash the subpoena and release Mr. Hall from any obligations therein. Authorities previously said Hall was a key witness in the state's investigation into the 4 officers who apprehended Floyd. He was seen in public body camera videos sitting in the car with Floyd. His longtime friend and as another occupant, Shawanda Hill, sat in the back seat. Prosecutors and defense attorney Eric Nelson also listed Hall as a potential witness in the trial of Chauvin, a former Minneapolis police officer. Reports said. Hall told the New York Times last June that Floyd didn't resist the arrest and instead attempted to defuse the situation. I could hear him pleading, "Please, officer, what's all this for?" he said. An official said Hall initially gave a false name to officers after Floyd's death. He then left Minneapolis and was tracked down in Texas and arrested due to outstanding warrants for felony possession of a firearm, domestic assault, and felony drug possession, the paper reported. Hall described himself as a key witness in the Times interview. I'm a key witness to the cops murdering George Floyd, and they want to know my side. Whatever I've been through, it's all over with now. It's not about me, he said. That is also by Fox News. So basically, I'm going to give my commentary, and I will try to be brief. This is a tragic event. And as I state, whatever you choose to believe about the incident that led to Floyd's death is up to your own interpretation by watching the video. But never have many of us ever seen a man in real time be murdered on a live camera feed via video camera, phone, and or webcam, dash cam, cameras from the police, and so forth. These people testified, the girlfriend, the ambulance people. And what I saw in the said video today, briefly, was disturbing to me once again. It was bad enough the day before yesterday I saw George Floyd die by the knee of a police officer. The altercation, the rumbling, however you want to word it, the resistance. However, to me, it wasn't that serious to me. Because I've seen people in videos over the years who resist arrest, who fight the police, curse, spit, beat them, take their gun, taser, kick them. I didn't see that with him. I saw a man who just didn't want to get in an ambulance. And yes, it was more of a shuffle once he got inside of the car, the back seat of the SUV. He slid himself all the way, was scooting himself, and the other officer tried to pull him. He told him, I'll pull you through. But in the end, George Floyd was too big, tall for that said car seat in the back. There's no way he would have fit comfortably, either sitting upright, on his side, his back, his chest. It didn't matter. He was going to be uncomfortable either way. And for a man to lie his size on his back, which would be deemed, yes, hogtied because his hands were handcuffed to the back, would be a very uncomfortable ride, because common sense would tell you his knees would have to be toward his chest. And how would that be comfortable? He could have lost breath that way without a knee to the neck. And it was their job, those officers, to lock the door once he got into the car. However, either by sitting upright, scooting with his back to the back window, door, the door should have been locked. That's first and foremost. And when he felt his way out of the other side of the vehicle, it was your job as the officers to put him back in, because that is why you took him to that car, is it not? Was to put him inside. But as I stated in my earlier video, you lied to Mr. Floyd because you said you were taking him across the street to talk to him. And naturally, he froze and was leery, did not want to get in. He let it be known, please, I want to talk to you. He had every right to say that because that's what you told him when you had him on the wall across the street from the Cup store. Hey, we're going to take you over here to talk to you. But when you got him to the vehicle, the SUV, you did not try to talk to him. You tried to put him inside and told him to get in. So you lied to him. And no matter if he knew he passed the bill or not, you still lied and said, I want to talk to you. So he assumed that is what you were going to do. But you did not. You lied. And naturally, a person doesn't want to go to jail, so they're doing all they can not to go in. But as I state, that little mumble, jumble, whatever Mr. Floyd was doing not to get in, to me was nothing major. Because if you are trained in your profession to detain a person, suspect, then you should have known how to do that without causing bodily injury to yourself and the said person, and especially not to cause death. It was too many of you for this game to have gone on, this, as I call it, the Hollywood shuffle you all did inside of that vehicle, for him to even get out through the other side of the door. Because, see, you should have had that door locked. And that was the motivation, was it not? You took him from across the street when he was first down on the ground and you were interrogating him about whatever was going on pertaining to the bill. And you said, we're going to walk you across the street and talk to you, but you did not talk to him, and you could see he did not want to get inside of the car. And that's when you all should have told him, sir, we would like this to be a smooth transition. You have to get inside the car. We're taking you downtown on the suspicion of passing a fake bill. We will try to put you in here comfortably because you are a tall person. We see that it is small inside of this SUV, but you have to get in. Do not make this hard for us to put you in here. Because naturally, as you all say, you want to go home. So you should have told the man, let's make this an easy trip, sir. Let's not prolong this trip, sir. And you had enough men, whether he was 6'4" or not, you should have been able to put him inside of that vehicle without him harming you or himself. But that did not transpire. So I blame you all, because you were supposed to be the ones in control of the situation. And there was no reason for George Floyd to ever have made it outside of that vehicle, period. Which then led to Chauvin kneeing him. And it is disrespectful in the utmost. Besides Chauvin kneeing him, you all stayed right there damn near 9 minutes alongside Chauvin to execute this man in view of the public. And Chauvin didn't let up. And in my right mind, I said to myself yesterday, he put force on that knee to knee this man to death intentionally. And you officers, the black guy, you rode the ride holding on to the back of Mr. Floyd's back arm. While they were behind his back, you held his arm wide. Chauvin had control of the situation. Floyd was on that ground, not moving for a long time. Initially in the beginning. And you held on to the back of that man's arm when we can use discretion to say he was either comatose and or deceased. What the hell were you doing holding on to his arm for? That truly bothered me. It was bad enough watching Chauvin hold on, kneeing this man, using force. But you're holding on to the back of a dead man's arm, perhaps? Why? You all aided this death of a black man in eyesight view of everyone who rode by or stood and watched without a care in the world. Without a care in the world. And even when the EMT showed up to take this man's pulse, you still aided Chauvin, black man. Yes, black cop. You wouldn't even let go of that man's arm when you saw that man had not moved. Almost 9 minutes of this fiasco, this disrespect to a human life, you're holding on to an arm that never moved. Why? And Chauvin with your dirty ass. You leaned in pressure because you see those photos they showed in court told the story. His arm was magenta. His shoulder, the muscle was magenta purple. And that shows force. The face was the same color that was leaned into the ground. Nose, bloodied, blood coagulated. And if anyone who's watched enough true crime knows that when blood coagulates, that means it's been there a while. So that shows proof he lied there longer than he should have. And even a superior has said, you used force and kept him down too damn long. Because that is the point of the story. That Mr. Floyd had no business making it to the ground because initially he was taken out of his car by gunpoint by an officer, taken to the wall of the side of the car and interrogated, and then crossed the street to the SUV to be put into the car. And you lied to him in that walk, the death walk I call it. That man walked to his own damn death. And you never had intention to talk to him about anything. Your last conversation was what you had with him outside of the vehicle on that wall. And you saw how he was. And to me, it doesn't matter if he was doped up, drunk, whatever. There have been way worse scenarios of resisting arrest where the cop didn't win. He just didn't want to get in the damn vehicle. And it was too many of you to allow that fiasco to go on. Because you should have told him, sir, they're claiming you passed the bill. We're just doing our job. We need you to get inside of the vehicle. Don't make this more difficult. We will try to put you in here comfortably so you can feel comfortable. We know you're a tall person. See, that's how you handle business. But you see, you didn't give a damn. And you showed that on that fateful day in May 2020. You did not care. And the fact that 3 of you lied on top of that man, knowing he had not moved, is despicable. Because there's no way you can explain damn near 9 minutes holding somebody down when initially they were inside of a vehicle. And had you locked the damn door, he would have never been able to scoot himself out to the other side of the vehicle and fall out of the other side of the back seat out of the door. That's your fault. 4 cops, 5 cops, you had no control of the situation. That's your fault. Now, Chauvin is on trial for murder, and you others are on trial for aiding and abetting your good friend, your partner, your comrade. That's your fault. Because it never should have got to that point of Mr. Floyd coming out of that car. The door should have been locked, so he would have been able to only back himself up to the door and know where to go. And then you push his feet inside and shut the door and take him down to the jail. And that would have been the end of the story. And we would have never heard of George Floyd. Chauvin, you intentionally killed that man on May 25th, 2020. And the bruising on his shoulders, his face, and the coagulated blood from his nose proves that. And I thank God for the cameras that you all wore, the people on the street filming, because it told the story. And the ambulance having cameras inside, amen. They told the story that you intentionally killed this man. And the fact that you would not even move your damn knee off that man's neck while the EMT checked for a pulse. And the EMT, you should have told the officers to get the hell out of the way. You've got to get this man up from the ground. But you didn't. But you didn't. And it was such a blatant disrespect to a human. And somebody being under the influence of narcotics, drugs, alcohol, any type of medicine, doesn't matter. It has nothing to do with the situation at hand. Because as I state, nobody outside knew if drugs were involved or not in his system or whatever. It doesn't matter. He was frightful. He was scared. He didn't want to get in that car naturally. It's common sense. People go to jail every day. People get questioned every day for crimes. And they go into the police car paddy wagon unscathed. They are processed in the jail unscathed. Go to court unscathed. Why is it that George Floyd didn't get that opportunity? Serial killers, rapists, every day go to jail. Apprehended every day go to jail. And they go unscathed into the process of being apprehended, booked, and so forth. And they're not beat up, they're not choked, they're not kneed to the neck. But George Floyd was not afforded the same rights and opportunity. Because a dirty white bird decided to knee him to the neck, and his other cohorts sat on top of him the same way, holding back, knowing they should have said, hey, he's not moving, come on, let's get him up, it's long enough. Because he had no right to be on the ground in the first place. It was your job that fateful day in May to make sure George Floyd stayed in that vehicle, uncomfortable as it may have been. That was your job, to make sure he stayed in that car. Because that defeats the damn purpose of putting him in the car. Whether he wanted to be in there or not, it was your job to make sure he got inside of the vehicle and doors were locked to secure his safety inside of the said vehicle. And you failed him, and you failed the system, and you failed the community, because it is your job to protect people, whether they're in the wrong or not. And it was up to a judge to decide if he was indeed wrong for passing a $20 bill. But you took it upon yourself, Mr. Chauvin, and your buddies to exact the judgment and punishment for Mr. George Floyd. What I saw yesterday was atrocious, such as the day before. And the ambulance showed me everything that I affirmed about this case. That you need him, and you put weight on that knee, because the shoulder did not lie. His face did not lie. And the bloody, coagulated blood from his nose did not lie. He was down there too long. And your own superior said so. And you used force, and you and your buddies held him down there too long, because George Floyd should have never been able to exit the vehicle. Due to the nature of this crime and the testimony and the videos showing in court, I can't bring any more content because I just can't do it. I will be watching. Periodically, I may mention some things from the trial until it ends and there is a verdict. But right now, I don't have the personal strength to bring any more content pertaining to the trial of Derek Chauvin and the murder of George Floyd, and it is a personal decision. Because I can't do it, and I won't. But I will be watching. And I will say this: no matter what happened on that day, no matter what you think of George Floyd, his life, his past, what he was under the influence of, this and that, it is neither here nor there. People evade arrest every day. People fight the police every day, and they still make it to the jail and make it to court. So miss me with the he resisted arrest. And also, before I check out of here, the fact that his friend, who was in the car that day, and also in the said video that has been shown in court, decides that he does not want to testify, that's bogus and BS to me as well. Why not? You were to testify on behalf of the prosecution in favor of George Floyd. Why not just say, what happened? Your testimony is only going to be a short window of what happened before his death. You rode with him to the store. They're going to ask you how you met him, how long you've known him, how long you were in the store, how long you sat in the car. What's so hard about telling that, if it's the truth? Is it because you have a criminal background, now all of a sudden you don't want them to bring that up? Well, it's too late. It's out. You should know, of course, you go to court, they're going to bring up your past because that's what they've done to Mr. Floyd. But if you were a decent human and a decent friend, associate to Mr. Floyd, you wouldn't have any problem testifying, because in the end, you're damn right, it ain't about you. It is about Mr. Floyd. So if you cared anything about Mr. Floyd, you wouldn't have any problem testifying to what happened up until his death. Now, the only reason why we could think is either one or two things, or both. You have something to hide about what actually happened before his death, pertaining to the $20 bill, if you get my drift. Or you just don't want to be scrutinized about your criminal record and the charges against you, which in the end, as you said, has nothing to do with George Floyd. This is my commentary. Prayers to the Floyd family. Prayers to the city of Minneapolis, the people who live there, the African American community, because as you see, we are still public enemy number one. And there are still people who don't care for black people. And Derek Chauvin proved that once again. But see, what he doesn't know, that we have the victory. And God is going to take care of business pertaining to George Floyd. Amen. Like, share, subscribe. Please leave your comments on my community post. Continue to follow the Queen, and I'll bring you more commentary to other breaking news and stories, true crime, and various topics. But I would like to just not bring any more commentary pertaining to this trial because I am beside myself in the information that was brought in court today with what I saw with the photographs of the ambulance, and now this said information about the alleged friend not testifying. This is so bogus and BS to me that I just don't have the strength to continue talking about and making any videos pertaining to the trial of Chauvin in the death of George Floyd. But know that I will be watching the trial, and my prayers are with his family and his children. Amen. Thank you all so much for tuning in to Everyday Shenanigans, and this is my commentary. See you later.